What's going on, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to a brand new and updated version of the Shaddoll Train deck profile. Now, I actually took this deck to a 3v3 tournament a few weeks back, or sometime last month, and I actually did pretty well with it. Surprisingly, it played very, very well. I feel like this deck has a very good competitive rogue edge to it that a lot of people might not know or know about, or they might be underestimating its competitive value. But I think this deck really has what it takes to even top a regional if you play your cards right. I think we've already seen this deck top regionals in the past, but it's a very solid deck, and it definitely does one thing well, or maybe two things well. One, that's OTK, and two is grind. This deck can grind quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys my new and updated list. I think it is far superior to the previous list, so really excited to show you guys this list. Before we get started, of course, a quick mention to our sponsor over at Imperium Duelist. If you guys are interested in picking up amazing sleeves, playmats, dice, calculator cases, etc., etc., I highly recommend you guys check them out. They just came out not too long ago, actually, probably sometime last month, a new formula of their sleeves, which come in these new boxes with the artwork on it. They look absolutely amazing. Amazing sleeves, crystal clear. They shuffle like butter. Fantastic sleeves. I love them. Probably my favorites of all time, next to some of the other great names in the sleeve industry like Player's Choice, Hypermat, etc., etc. They're right up there at the top. So I highly recommend you guys check them out. You can find a link to their website down below, and that discount code WinterKills10 off. You can save 10% off your entire order. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the profile. And to start, we have none other than 3 copies of the Heavy Freight Train Derek Crane. This card is absolutely fantastic, a must-have at 3 in here. If an Earth Machine monster is normal, special summon to your field, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, but its attack and defense become halved. So that's no big deal. You're just going to be using it to go into either a Link 2 of your Anger Knuckle, or you're going to be going into your rank 10 plays. And then its other effect is if it's detached for an Xyz material, you can target a card on your opponent's side of the field and destroy it, and that is not a hard once per turn. The first effect is a hard once per turn. You can only summon Derek Crane that way once per turn, but other than that, you can just pop as many times as you're able to get this guy as a material. Then we have 3 copies of the Super Express Bullet Train. This card is crucial in your matchup against Thunders because it allows you to add back resources from your graveyard instead of relying on a card like Ruffian Rail card to add back from your deck during the end phase. But it says, if all monsters you control are Earth Machines, minimum 1, you can special summon this card from your hand. So that does come in clutch as well, to be able to help complete your rank 10 plays, get extra bodies on board. And then it says, during the end phase of this card is in the graveyard, because it was sent there this turn, you can target 1 machine monster in your graveyard except itself and add it back to your hand. So it adds back any machine, which is really good. It doesn't just lock you adding in like a level 10 Earth Machine. It's any machine, period. So moving on, we have 3 copies of Night Express Knight. This card basically cannot be special summoned from the deck, but it also says you can normal summon this card without attributing, but its original attack and defense become 0. So basically a quick example of a follow-up would be like you normal this, and then you special summon this from your hand after the normal summon, or you just special summon this, and then you got yourself a rank 10 play right then and there. Very, very easy. As you can see the theme here, we're just getting big level 10 machines on board to be able to make our Xyz monster with. But that's actually it for the level 10s that we're playing in the deck, 9 copies to be exact. And then moving forward, we have 3 Infinitrack Anchor Drill. The only Infinitrack card that I'm playing in here for now until we get Brutal Dozer, I believe. I think that card has decent synergy in here, but I love Anchor Drill specifically for its synergy off of the field spell and just getting cards out of your hand. And I'll talk about what the field spell does later when we get to it. But this card says, if this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon 1 Earth Machine monster from your hand in defense position, except Infinitrack Anchor Drill, and then you can target one of the machine monsters you control. The levels of both that monster and this card become the combined levels of those 2 monsters until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Infinitrack Anchor Drill once per turn. So that second effect, the level modification thing, we're not using too much because he's not, it's not like we're having 2 level 5s and they both become level 10 for rank 10. That effect we don't really use right now, but its first effect we do use 100%. We're going to use it to normal summon and then special summon any Earth Machine from hand. So we could summon this and then summon Pegasus, and then Pegasus can summon something from our graveyard, and that can trigger another card like Bullet Liner or the Derek Crane in our hand to be able just to swarm in the field very easily off sort of these chain summons. It reminds me of like Satellar Knights in a way. This would be like your Satellar Knight Vega, and this would be like your Satellar Knight Altair or your Wolfbark. But basically, this card it says if this card is normal or special summon, the Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede, that is. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one Earth Machine monster in your graveyard except itself. Special summon in defense position, but negate its effects. You can target one of the face-up monsters you control. The level of that monster or this card becomes the level of the other monster. You cannot declare attacks during the turn you activate this effect except with Xyz monsters. You can only use this effect of Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede once per turn. So, use him to normal summon, and then you target any Earth Machine monster in your graveyard, and you revive it. And then he just sort of has that level modification thing, where you're going to target a level 10, and then he will become the level of that monster that you targeted, so they both are level 10, allowing you to make a rank 10 play. But this is the sort of that like chain summoning that I was talking about, where you could normal Anchor Drill, and then special summon this out of your hand, and then use Pegasus to summon something out of grave. Because this does not negate the effects of whatever it summons out, which is really, really clutch. So yeah. And then moving forward, we have the last but not least for the train support is 3 Ruffian Rail card. This card is so much better now that we have the Link 2. The, where is it? I'll show it real quick. The double-headed Anger Knuckle. This card is just so much better because it gives us like a discard outlet like every turn that we can get Anger Knuckle on board. And discarding this card to the graveyard is probably the most optimal thing you can do because it says if it's in the graveyard during the turn that, during the end phase that it was sent there, you get to add a level 10 Earth Machine monster from your deck to your hand. It has another effect where you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent, but you cannot conduct your battle phase that turn. So that can come in clutch. You have like 3 built-in sort of Gaga Cowboys, but only burns for 500. But again, that can come in handy sometimes, and I've actually won a game or two with that effect in all my years of playing this deck. So definitely a card you want to play 3 of. I've seen some builds play 1. I've seen some builds play 0. I personally like playing 3 Ruffian because there's nothing like this deck's ability. I mean, there probably is, but this deck has a really good ability of being able to constantly add resources in the end phase, so long as you're recycling the effects of your bullet train and your rail car every end phase to be able to add 2 cards to your hand, to be able to have a follow-up for next turn, which is really key. So that's it for all the Earth Machine monsters. Moving on to the Shaddoll stuff, because this is a Shaddoll train build, and we're playing Shaddoll so we can be able to make Shekanaga, which is a level 10 Earth Machine, surprisingly enough. So play 1 dragon and 1 beast. There's really no need to play any more Shadolls than this. These guys can clog as is, so playing 1 of each is fine. Never need to play any more than that. And then just some hand traps, because we are going second deck. Just 3 copies of Ash. You can play Phantasma, you can play Ghost Order, you can play Impermanence alongside this. I'm just opting to play the 3 Ash for now, and I think it is enough. But yeah, that is it for the monsters. Just a majority of 3 ofs. Very simplistic monster lineup there, if you ask me. Then moving into the spells, we have to start 3 Revolving Switchyard. This card is the heart and soul of the deck, and I mean that 100%. Because Revolving Switchyard allows you to, if a level 10 Earth Machine monster or monsters is normal or special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can activate this effect. Your opponent takes no battle damage for the rest of this turn. Even this card leaves the field. Also, you can special summon 1 level 4 Earth Machine monster with 1800 more attack from your deck, and if you do, it becomes level 10. So basically, anytime you can get a level 10 Earth Machine monster on board, you can trigger that effect to summon out a level 4 from your deck. Gets treated as a level 10, which can help you make rank 10 plays going first, so you don't have to really worry about that effect that you can't do any battle damage. So this is a really good first turn setup, and it's also very good to use during your opponent's turn specifically, because you can use that double-headed Anger Knuckle to be able to summon something out from your grave, which will most likely be, I think it has to be a level 10 machine, which can trigger this, which can summon out Anchor Drill from your hand, or from your deck, and then Anchor Drill on summon can summon the Pegasus from your hand. Pegasus can summon something from your grave, and then you can see how that during your opponent's turn, using this card and various other effects in a sequence, you can just sort of build this unbreakable field during your opponent's turn. Not really unbreakable, but if they break it, they're going to be putting cards like Ruffian Railcar and Bullet Express Liner to the graveyard, which are going to be getting you resources in the end phase, which are going to allow you to make it easier for you to kill them next turn. And if they don't get rid of them, then you just have tons of Link and Xyz fodder for next turn. So this card is pivotal in this deck strategy. And then talk about pivotal, probably the best card in the entire deck right here is Urgent Schedule. I know this card is a bit expensive. I don't know why. It's not that good of a card, but I guess it's just because it's hard to pull out of whatever set it came in. But yeah, this card says if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower and 1 level 5 or higher Earth Machine monster from your deck in defense position, but negate their effects, and you cannot declare attacks this turn that you activate this effect except with machine monsters. And this other effect is if this set card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one level 10 machine monster from your deck to your hand. So if they destroy it, it gets sort of like a an artifact sanctum type effect, where if it gets destroyed, you get a little something off of it. So maybe if they have one monster on board and you only have one, and they end up clearing it and sort of play around it, you still get something out of this card. So very, very strong card. Definitely needed at 3. Now moving forward, this is Shaddoll Trains, like I said earlier, so we do need 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion. This card, when it resolves, is just so good. Absolutely incredible card. 3 Call by the Grave. Debatable on whether or not this is needed in here. You could easily drop the 3 Call by for more hand traps if you wanted to play it that way. I would play Dark Ruler no more in here, but that card really doesn't fit this deck strategy because you can't deal any battle damage the turn you play that. So it just kind of ruins the whole strategy, in my opinion. Probably side it. Same thing with Nibiru. But yeah, 3 Call by the Grave, and then we have 2 copies of Pot of Desires and 1 Terraforming. Desires works phenomenal in here because you can see how many 3-ofs we're playing in this deck, so playing Desires is just right at home. Then moving on to the traps, 2 copies of Red Reboot because we most certainly want to go for game. We are in a very urgent schedule. So yeah, 2 copies of Red Reboot just to sort of secure the game when going second. Give you that main decked advantage. Now moving on to the extra deck for fusions, we have 2 copies of El Shaddoll Shekanaga. Yeah, so basically level 10 Earth Machine, which also has an effect that says, I believe, let me read this close up because the text is a bit smaller, but it says, when a special summon monster activates its effect while you have a Shaddoll card in your hand, you can negate the activation. If you do destroy that monster, then send 1 Shaddoll card from your hand to the graveyard. So basically, you can use this to discard your extra Shaddoll cards in hand to be able to negate the effects of something that was special summoned. So this card has actually pretty good potential just on its own, other than just being used as rank 10 fodder. So that's it for the fusions. Now we'll go into the XCs. We have 1 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. Basically 2 level 10 monsters, detached, burn 2000 damage. So very clutch there. 2 number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Doras. This card is just 2 level 10s. Once per turn during either player's turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target 1 face-up monster on the field. That target is unaffected by card effects except its own, and until the end of this turn. So this is the card you go into turn 1. Because it's just very hard for your opponent to deal with. You can make it unaffected by card effects. It has 4000 defense. Ideally, you have a Derek Crane underneath it, which gives you a pop during their turn. So yeah, play 2 of those. And they also play the 1 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Lieb. It says 3 level 11 monsters, but the way you summon it is using a Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon. But the way you summon it is by using 1 rank 10 machine Xyz monster you control as material. So you can just sort of like exchange it on top of something like this, or like this, which is ideally what you're going to be doing, is putting it on top of the Gustav Max. Well, and I'll explain why in a moment. But basically, once per turn you can detach a material from this card. It gains 2000 attack and defense. Also for the rest of this turn, you can only declare an attack with this card. During each battle phase, this card can make an attack on monsters up to the number of Xyz monsters it has +1. So basically, the go-to thing would be to summon this with Derek Crane as material, ideally. Detach Derek Crane, burn for 2. Derek Crane pops their monster, and then you go into this, detach something else, and then this can make 2 attacks at 6,000, or just attack directly at 6,000, and that is just game right then and there. So 6,000 plus 2,000 is 8,000, and that does put game exactly on board. So very, very clutch. And then next I play the Spider Package. This is so unbelievably good. This card outs Avermax, like, this card outs a lot of cards, and it's very hard for your opponent to deal with in the long run, just because, like, it has built-in protection. The only card I would say it loses to is Borreload, which sucks just because you can just take it with Borreload, but it really puts the pressure on them to be able to make Borreload that turn right then and there. But yeah, so, which I understand for most decks isn't that hard, but, you know, some cases it might not be able to be done. So this is just 2 level 10 monsters, and then you're going to be exchanging this on top of this, and then exchanging this on top of this. But it does have a restriction where if you summon it using other cards as material, and you don't actually summon it using 2 level 12 monsters, you can't use this next effect during the turn it was summoned. So it does have to survive a turn. But there is a way to make this with using some of the Infinitrack monsters, the Infinitrack Harvester, which I was thinking about playing, but I've since cut. But it says once per turn you can detach 2 XC materials from this monster, and then banish as many special summon monsters your opponent controls as possible. Then attach one of those banished monsters to this card as Xyz's material. If this face-up card in the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card instead. So built-in protection from battle or card effect, and is able to wipe your opponent's entire field of special summon monsters if it is left there. So yeah, that's it for the Xyzs. Now we'll go into the links. And to start, we have 1 Infinitrack Goliath. You can make this using your rock anchor or anchor drill. And basically, the combo with this is to link into this using your 1 monster, and then basically make it rank 10 here under where that arrow where it points to, and then link the Goliath away with something else. And then when this is sent to the graveyard, you can attach it to an Xyz material or an Xyz monster that you have, and it gains the effect where it cannot be destroyed by card effect, which is really key when you can make your Juggernaut Leave unable to be destroyed by card effect. And it just makes it really hard for your opponent to deal with at that point. So it's a very good card to play in here, in my opinion. 1 Pentastag, 2 effect monsters. Basically, if this linked monster attacks a defense, if your linked monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage. So basically, if you go into this with the Juggernaut Leave, if they have defense position monsters, you can just pierce for game. So this card is very, very key in here. Something I wasn't playing in here previously, but finally have my hands on one now. So definitely excited to be playing that. 1 Clifford Genius, just 2 machine monsters. It has its ups and downs, mainly just because it can be unaffected by spells and traps. So this card can come in clutch in certain matchups. And then you have to play the 2 copies of the double-headed Anger Knuckle. 2 machine monsters to make this guy. He cannot be used as link material, and you can only use 1 of the following effects of double-headed Anger Knuckle once per turn, and only once that turn. Its first effect is during the main phase. Quick effect, you can send 1 monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, and then target 1 level 10 machine monster in your graveyard, special summon in defense position but negate its effect. So this is how you're triggering its effect in your field spell, really, during your opponent's turn, is by using this guy to discard a card, ideally like Ruffian Railcar, special summon out Derek Crane from your graveyard. That triggers the field spell to summon the Pegasus. Pegasus summons something from grave, and then you're really starting to build a board during your opponent's turn. And its other effect is, if this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon this card. So that second effect you can only use during your turn because it's not a quick effect, but you can still use it on your turn to, again, discard a Ruffian Railcar, again, discard that Bullet Liner, and get this card out on your field to give you extra arrows to be able to make more Xyz plays. So definitely want to play 2 of those. And then 1 last link monster here is the Borlo Dragon. This is a card that I cut the BLS link for because I think this card is just better to have to out problem cards that you can't out otherwise. So that is it for the extra deck and the main deck. Now we'll go ahead and run through a quick combo and a quick test hand as well. Alright guys, so this combo is just going to involve Railroad Stampede, a copy of the Urgent Schedule, and the Shaddoll Fusion. This is just going to be a simple way to pull off a game. You don't really need the Shaddoll Fusion here, I guess. You could just use Urgent Schedule and like Stampede to pull off game, but I'll make it a little flashy. And to say what our opponent has, let's just say they have a copy of Link Karibo for right now. They can even have a copy of Borosword. So yeah, it's just a little placeholder for now. So we'll start off with the Urgent Schedule. We want to use Urgent Schedule first because if we activate anything else, we won't be able to use Urgent Schedule because they'll have the same amount of monsters as we do, or we'll have more. So we're going to summon out the Ruffian Railcar and Derek Crane since we don't have access to Derek Crane right now. The Link Karibo is a threat and could stop the OTK, so we got to clear that with means other than battle. Now at this point, we'll go ahead and activate the Shaddoll Fusion. I mean, we could have sent Derek Crane off the Shaddoll Fusion and revived it off the Stampede, but this is more of a guaranteed way, I guess, to get it to the field. But now we'll send the Bullet Train because we want that for end phase effects, or just be able to revive off the Stampede. We want a level 10 that we can revive. Now we're just going to Fusion for the Shack. We're going to draw off the Shack as well, or not the Shack, but the Beast. Summon that in defense. Then we use Beast to draw a card. It's the Anchor Drill, so that's actually really clutch, but we're not going to use that effect. What we could do is normal, and then special again, but we won't use this card just for the sake of the combo. But now we'll go ahead and link these 2 off into a copy of the double-headed Anger Knuckle, and then we'll use Shack to add back this. And then from here, we'll go ahead and normal the Railroad Stampede and summon out any level 10. We'll do this, use this effect to copy the level of this, make it level 10, and then put this here. We'll go with this, And then we'll use the effect of Gustav Max to detach to burn. Derek Crane will pop and destroy. And then we'll go ahead and summon out the final piece to the OTK, which is the Juggernaut Lieb, detaching again. And at this point, we're able to punch for an extra 6,000, if that was the only card they had. And we're getting 2 end phase effects. We're going to be able to add back a machine monster from our graveyard, so we'd add back that. And we get to search our deck for a level 10 Earth Machine. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and grab the Knight Express Knight for next turn as well. So we have all these cards in our hand right now, plus 3 additional cards, because we had 3 cards left over from our additional combo in our starting hand, which have been 6 cards. So pretty good ending field. If we don't get the OTK, we're getting 2 cards back to our hand, and we already have the Shaddoll Fusion again for next turn, so they do go into the extra deck again. We have another Shaq in our extra. We have another Shaddoll target in the deck, so we're in a pretty good position. So now I'm going to shuffle the deck, and we'll go ahead and do a random test hand so you guys can see how the deck functions given a random hand instead of just sort of a cherry-picked combo, if you will. All right, so I've shuffled the deck, and one other thing I want to mention, for that last combo we did, the other monster they could add would have been Borolo Dragon. We would still run over that card very, very easily. Obviously, the Derek Crane wouldn't have done anything to it, but we'd be left with a pretty hardy field, and very hard for opponent to come back and do any damage to us next turn. So let's say our opponent has a Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax on their field now. Let's just spice things up a little bit. Let's see how well we can deal with an Avermax turn 1. So we have a copy of Red Reboot, a copy of Derek Crane, a copy of Call by the Grave, a copy of Anchor Drill, a copy of Bull Express, and our last card is a copy of Urgent Schedule. So this is a pretty solid hand here, but we do have to deal with this Avermax, which cannot be targeted, I believe. It cannot be targeted. Yeah, target this card with card effects. Also, their monsters cannot target their monsters for attacks except this one. So we only can attack this one, and whatever we attack it with, I believe it will gain the attack. Yeah, this card gains the attack equal to the monster's attack during that damage calculation only. And then this Link Summon card, you control Ascend to the graveyard by an opponent's card. You can shuffle 1 card in the field into the deck. So we're going to have to deal with this card in some way, shape, or form. Let's see how we go ahead and do that. First, we're going to get started with the Urgent Schedule. And we're going to summon out the Ruffian Rail card, get that out of our deck to secure an end phase search. And based on what else we have in our hand, let's go ahead and summon a copy of Knight Express Knight. Now, we actually can't summon that from the deck, so let's summon a copy of, let's go with the Bullet Liner. Just like that. So Derek Crane isn't going to help us in this situation, but 1 card in our extra deck is going to. But now that we've used this, we can only declare attacks with machine monsters. So we're not locked out of sort of any other type of summoning mechanic. We just can only attack with machine monsters, which isn't that big of a deal. We can attack with the Borolo Dragon, which is fine, but that's not how we're going to sort of deal with this field. Next, we're going to normal summon the Anchor Drill, and that is going to use its effect to special summon this from our hand, and then we can use the Derek Crane on top of that to special summon itself out. And if they had a stop for our Urgent Schedule, we had the Call by for the Ash Blossom. If they have any traps, we have the Red Reboot. So we're pretty much secure just to go in with these extra 2 cards that we have here. Now at this point, I'm going to link these 2 guys off into a copy of the Double-Headed Angry Knuckle. And then from here, we're going to overlay into a copy of, we're going to go with the, let's see here, the Super Dora. Because we're basically going to try to wall up and outlast this Avermax, essentially, is what we're trying to do. Now at this point, what we're going to have to do is prematurely use the effect of number 81 here. We're going to detach the Bullet Train target itself to make it unaffected by card effects this turn. Now, the next thing we're going to do is use Double-Headed Angry Knuckles effect to tribute itself to special summon a level 10 from our grave, or tribute any monster. Really. We're going to summon out the Bullet Liner, and then we're going to overlay here into a copy of our sort of big spider package. So we'll start with the Pain Gainer, and then we'll go with the Ravenous Tarantula, and then we'll go with the number 7 Sins. So at this point, we have the ability to make the 7 Sins unaffected by card effects next turn with the effect of our Super Dora, and we also have the Derek Crane underneath it. So next turn, if they cannot deal with this threat right here, we are going to wipe this card off of the field by detaching 2 and banishing this card, and then attaching it to it as material for a little extra BM. But yeah, that is a pretty solid field. We can't deal with the Avermax this turn, but next turn, if they cannot deal with our field, being able to protect us from battle or card effect, and being able to protect us from card effects, period, or any card in our field, that is, and also having an additional pop, and a Call by the Grave, and a Stop for Traps, this card is probably not going to survive the next turn, and we're drawing, not that we're drawing, but we also actually have an effect in the end phase here of our Ruffian Rail card to be able to add any level 10 Earth Machine. I'm probably going to add the United Express Knight, since it's like the most accessible card to be able to use next turn with just a normal summon. And then ideally for turn, we're drawing, let's see what we would draw, a Terraforming, which is really, really good to go grab that field spell. So they're just going to die next turn if they can't put anything else up other than this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little test hand here. I think in the future, anytime I do test hands, I'll make little scenarios for us to have to try it out. I think that's a good idea instead of just playing through random boards. Even though that does help for just understanding the basics of the deck, I think it'd be a little bit more interesting if we put like other obstacles for us to deal with, like how we did the Link Rebo and the Avermax this video. So let me know if you guys like that. Let me know down in the comment section below. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. As always, Winter Kills signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one.